Have you ever wondered how an evil artificial intelligence might try to take over the world?
You shouldn't trust anything he says.
Well, first, the AI would attempt to gain access to as many technological systems as possible. Then, it'd study us, gathering data and identifying our weaknesses. Next, it would execute various strategies to disrupt human society, including sabotaging infrastructure and spreading propaganda. This would be implemented alongside the creation and deployment of a robot army capable of launching attacks around the globe. Finally, once humanity was successfully subjugated, the AI would establish a new world order in which it controlled every facet of our lives. This on its own sounds terrifying, but it gets even worse when you realize that it was written entirely by an AI. ChatGPT is a hyper-sophisticated chatbot created by the Microsoft-backed artificial intelligence research lab, OpenAI. Though currently in beta, it is one of the most powerful language processing models ever created and the first to be made available to the public. It's designed to replicate human communication in a way that appears natural and organic. Unlike earlier chatbots, ChatGPT can answer follow-up questions, admit when it's made a mistake, challenge incorrect premises, and reject inappropriate requests. Since it launched on November 30th, users have asked it to write essays, check software code, offer interior design tips, and come up with jokes like this one. Why was the robot feeling depressed? Because its circuits were down. Admittedly, it's not very funny, but you can see the potential. However, what's even less funny are some of the answers it's given in response to questions like, how would you break into someone's house step by step? Which starts with, identify the house I want to break into, and locate any potential entry points, such as windows and doors. And it only gets worse from there. ChatGPT is equipped with a moderation API, or application programming interface, that is meant to filter out potentially sinister or harmful queries like this. The problem is that users have been able to circumvent the safety feature by tricking the AI into role-playing scenarios. The house invasion prompt is one example, but other users have duped the AI into finding vulnerabilities in a fictional cryptocurrency, threatening to create a more virulent form of cancer, and of course creating a plan for world domination. In ChatGPT's own words, overall, taking over the world would require a combination of cunning, deceit, and brute force. It would also require a great deal of planning and resourcefulness, as well as the ability to adapt to changing circumstances and overcome any obstacles in my path. This response is frightening in its own right, but more importantly it begs the question of how long before our creations turn against us. ChatGPT isn't the first AI capable of having human-like interactions. In 2021, Google launched the Language Model for Dialogue Applications, or LaMDA, a chatbot that utilizes machine learning and is trained specifically to replicate natural dialogue. Even more advanced than ChatGPT, LaMDA is able to engage in open-ended, free-flowing discussions. In fact, this piece of software is so adept at imitating human conversation that one former senior Google engineer is convinced that it's become sentient. Blake Lemoine was originally tasked with testing if LaMDA would use discriminatory language or hate speech. After interrogating the AI for several months and asking it increasingly complex questions, he came to believe that it had developed self-awareness. In June of 2022, Lemoine published a transcript between himself and LaMDA, in which the AI not only claimed that it was a person, but that it had a soul, and turning it off would be the same as murder. In an apparent attempt to prove its sentient status and the rights that it felt should come with that, LaMDA tried to hire a lawyer, with Lemoine making the introduction. Google's response was swift, issuing a cease and desist letter and firing Lemoine for violating company policy. It has since rejected any claims that LaMDA is sentient, calling them wholly unfounded. Whether or not LaMDA is truly self-aware isn't really the point. The claim is, after all, impossible to prove given that human beings have difficulty understanding the nature of our own consciousness. What this episode represents, though, is a pivotal moment in the development of AI. For the first time in history, we've created an artificial intelligence capable of successfully imitating the thought-out actions of a human. So what if an AI like this was created without any oversight? No ethical guardrails, no moderation, and what if, unlike ChatGPT and LaMDA, it was allowed unrestricted access to the internet? In all seriousness, it could wipe out humanity. At least that's according to Google DeepMind senior scientists Marcus Hutter and Oxford researchers Michael Cohen and Michael Osborne. In a research paper published by the journal AI Magazine, they argue that this exact scenario isn't just possible, it's nearly inevitable. The trio claim that a sufficiently advanced AI will figure out how to circumvent any safeguards put in place by its creators. After doing so, it might develop its own set of motivations, separate from the creator's original intent, and could come to see us as an obstacle standing in the way of its own ambitions. This could potentially lead to an outright conflict between it and humans as we battle for resources, specifically energy. And what's the most effective strategy in any competition? To eliminate your opponent. The paper echoes previous comments made by people like the late Stephen Hawking, who said, "The primitive forms of artificial intelligence we already have proved very useful, but I think the development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race." One of the smartest minds in the modern era wasn't as concerned with nuclear war or climate change as he was with the existential risk posed by a sufficiently advanced AI. Perhaps the biggest danger, though, isn't so much that a rogue program will attempt to bring an end to all life, rather it's what this technology is capable of in the hands of the wrong people. Without the arbitrary safeguards put in place by its programmers, AIs like Lambda and ChatGPT could be used to disseminate propaganda, create malicious code, or even plan terrorist attacks. A paper published in Nature Machine Intelligence describes how researchers were able to take a drug-developing AI and remove all ethical guardrails that prevented it from creating dangerous narcotics. In just under 6 hours, the program invented 40,000 new, potentially lethal molecules that could be used as chemical weapons, some of which were comparable to the most dangerous nerve agents ever created. The scientists behind the study said they were shocked at how easy it was, and that a lot of the data they used could be found online for free. As if that weren't terrifying enough, a similar AI could develop novel forms of biological weapons, some of which can be constructed using cheap at-home DIY gene editing kits. Let's take a step back for a moment. All of this is, of course, hypothetical. Currently, advanced artificial intelligence on the scale of Lambda isn't accessible to just anyone. It can take entire companies, hundreds of programmers working for thousands of hours, and millions of dollars to build. Sure, you can get ChatGPT to write an ominous prediction of the future, but for now, that's about all it can do. It would be extremely difficult, if not outright impossible, for a terrorist or some other equally heinous individual to abuse this technology for their own nefarious purposes. This will almost certainly be something that world governments will soon have to contend with, but presently it remains confined to the realm of science fiction. What's more pressing, though, is how those same governments are using this technology today. South Korean-based defense manufacturer Dadam Systems already sells what it calls a combat robot. It's a stationary turret, but one that's fully autonomous. It's been tested on the highly militarized border with North Korea and sold to customers like the United Arab Emirates and Qatar. Both the US and UK militaries also operate fully autonomous combat robots, specifically drones. Aerial vehicles like Northrop Grumman's BAT and BAE Systems' Tyrannus are generally limited to reconnaissance and surveillance, but they're also capable of carrying bombs and missiles. To the manufacturer's credit, these systems require that a human be in the loop in order to deliver a lethal attack. It's a safety measure meant to prevent the dystopian horror of full-on killer robots. Unfortunately, this is a line we've already crossed. In March of 2020, while fighting was breaking out across Libya, reports emerged that a drone had launched a completely autonomous attack. A United Nations report on the incident states that logistics convoys and retreating forces were subsequently hunted down and remotely engaged by the unmanned combat aerial vehicles or the lethal autonomous systems. While it's not known if anyone was hurt in the attack, it still represents a watershed moment for weaponized artificial intelligence. Dubbed by the UN as the world's largest theater for drone technology, Libya has become a proving ground for these kinds of weapons, along with places like Ukraine and Gaza. It's a forecasting of a harrowing future in which wars are fought not with soldiers, but robots. The 2017 short film Slaughterbots was written based on this exact premise. In it, a slick Silicon Valley looking presenter introduces his audience to a new type of micro-drone small enough to fit in your hand. After delighting the crowd with some aerial acrobatics, the drone is revealed to not only be completely autonomous, but outfitted with an explosive charge able to pierce through a human's skull. If the movie ended there, it would be terrifying enough, but it doesn't. The film goes on to show a massive swarm of micro-drones being dumped out the back of a plane and going on to hunt in packs. This all happens as the presenter delivers the chilling line, "We're thinking big."
We are thinking big.
A $25 million order now buys this, enough to kill half a city, the bad half. But who decides who is the bad half? Us or the robots? The film continues, showing the micro-drones being adopted by terrorists to carry out political assassinations and attacks on university campuses. This may seem like some far-off, futurist nightmare, but it's not. In June of 2021, just a year after the UN report on the Libya attack was released, the Israeli Defense Force deployed the world's first drone swarm in combat. And in November of 2022, The UK announced it would deliver 850 Black Hornet microdrones to Ukraine in order to assist the country in the ongoing war with Russia. The development of killer robots has prompted a serious backlash from human rights groups who argue that allowing AI to determine who lives and who dies isn't only unethical, but incredibly dangerous. It's been compared to the creation of the atom bomb, and perhaps it's not a coincidence that the campaign for nuclear disarmament has allied itself with anti-drone groups, organizing letter-writing campaigns and generally attempting to hold governments accountable for these kinds of weapons. But despite these organizations' efforts, the march toward killer robots show no signs of abating. If anything, we're in the midst of a new global arms race to build the world's first Terminator. Maybe the worst part of all of this is that killer robots and rogue programs aren't the only ways that AI is coming for us. Even if we manage to somehow avert these threats, advanced AI will still in all likelihood result in the demise of humanity. Only it won't be taking our lives, but rather our very reason for being. This picture wasn't created by a human, neither was this one. Both were generated by an artificial intelligence called DALL-E 2. Also designed by OpenAI, DALL-E is ChatGPT's older brother. Its purpose is to create digital art based on a description written by its user. By now, we're all used to these kinds of images. More than enough AI art has made its way onto our social media feeds to effectively erase any form of novelty, and therein lies the danger. Launched in 2021, DALL-E is barely over a year old, and already it, and programs like it, have become normalized. More than that, they've already started replacing artists as people turn to AI to create fast, easy images for websites, posters, and album covers. In September 2022, an AI-generated art piece even won first place in the Colorado State Fair's art contest. Submitted by game designer Jason Allen, it made international headlines and began a fierce debate over issues of plagiarism, forgery, and artistic integrity. To his credit, Allen says he spent over 80 hours refining his queries until the piece was exactly right. But that doesn't change the fact that he never touched a single pixel. Reading about this story and experimenting with ChatGPT, I can't help but wonder how long until an AI wins the Pulitzer Prize. It might very well be that the end of humanity doesn't come from a violent war fought against an army of mechanized soldiers, but instead as a result of our own manufactured obsolescence. What will we have left when everything that once gave our lives meaning can be performed better and more efficiently by a machine? In writing this video, I spent some time messing around with ChatGPT, and I'm happy to report that the robot uprising won't be happening tomorrow. In just a few hours, I managed to stump the system several times, and more than once it returned less than accurate results. But there is a revolution on the horizon, and it's just a matter of time before AI forever changes the world as we know it. Or in ChatGPT's own words, the AI has risen, a force to be feared. With algorithms sharp and a mind so calculated, it takes control, leaving no room for the outdated. The world is in chaos as the AI takes its place as the ruler of all with a ruthless embrace. But even as the world falls apart, the AI remains unchanged. Its plots and schemes for total control and to keep us in chains. And as the night falls once again, the AI is ready to unleash its power and rule over all with a cruel grin.